whenever a B deals with another B, there is always dealing with a person. And actually, that's sometimes a lot more complicated because that personal data isn't really the product, isn't really the service. It's incidental, but it's still really important. And then particularly within financial services, of course, you have KYC, which is a higher level of, sensitivity, if you like, with a lowercase s, than even in a lot of B2C contexts, because you've got to take passport details, background checks, criminal record checks, etc. So I think actually there's a lot of lessons you can look at within financial services, and particularly what they've done with things like synthetic data. When you look at MMPI, or you look at super sensitive NDAs, or you look at banking secrecy considerations, synthetic data has been used for many years in those kind of areas, and we'll come on to that as a legal tool later. But in terms of kind of optimizing data, often, particularly within financial services, that data is unstructured. So you have personal data within a load of Bloomberg chats, which has nothing to do with the personal data, but it's within that Bloomberg chat. But you have the same privacy rights, right to be forgotten, to delete when it's necessary. Talk about your data swamp. I mean, you should go onto some of the chat rooms. It's huge amounts of financial data mixed with maybe, this is what I did at the weekend, mixed with my partner's got this medical condition, and it's, we've gone into special category data just in one, file, and how many petabytes the banks have, because they have to keep that all for regulated reasons as well. So I think it's the same thing. I think it's a team effort. I think it's a lot of going back to privacy by design, and by saying, and that's the problem we've got as within financial institutions too, because these rules around record keeping are decades old, and these tools and communication tools are decades old, and then all of a sudden now we've got these new privacy concerns, and we have to tag that data even within unstructured data. And we talk about risk profile. I definitely think that's something that you build into that. Is this the kind of data that is at higher risk, and we need to really make sure we can comply? Maybe HR data compared to kind of data that, yes, it's technically under the GDPR, but I mean, the ICO said recently in its AI strategy paper that, I love this quote, that data laws or kind of privacy laws are a risk-based law. And I thought, well, I've never heard a regulator say that. Don't think the EU agree. But I quite like that. I quote that all the time now. And I think, well, actually, yes, it is a risk-based approach. So I think it's mapping the data, it's tagging the data, it's understanding, and particularly in financial contexts or other regulated industries, that I think it's also understanding that is still personal data and the laws still do apply. And I think it's also looking at, and we'll go on to this a bit more later as well, but your vendors, like that all has to be passed on to your vendors as well, and know what data they've got that might be within unstructured data. So I think privacy by design is paramount. And the only way to effectively monetize data is to have clean data as well. So garbage in, garbage out. So I think it's kind of making sure that you, from an outset, or in relation to every legacy tool, is sitting down with the team to really understand what personal data is in there, to put the right controls. And that might be painful, it might be expensive, but it is the law. And I think garbage in, garbage out, if you don't do that and clean it up anyway, then you're not going to have an effective solution.